is the need for safety and health practitioners to define themselves less by their historical competencies, however unique they are viewed, but more by the comprehensiveness of what they offer to the 21st century world of work. Building comprehensive practice portfolios on a core competency is a good thing. However, if a profession does not recognize that its core competency has become in practice constrained and seems to be unlikely to meet the needs of the 21st century, then the competency obviously needs to be enriched, it needs to be enlarged. Other competencies need to be added to the core competency, and significant professional enlargement needs to occur. If we look at the profession of industrial hygiene, which just seems to come to mind this morning to me, the profession, and indeed those outside the profession, recognize that the knowledge of exposure assessment has been a necessary condition for professional identity. But what may not be as recognized to those outside the profession is such knowledge, especially if limited only to the traditional chemical or physical agent exposure assessment, will probably not be sufficient to define the profession for the entire 21st century. Specialization versus generalization is how I've always been led to believe is the core of the debate. But I believe the 21st century will require both a specialization and a generalization. The ability to find all the information that you're not a specialist in, be able to present that information. One will have to offer specialist credentials in occupational and environmental safety and health. At the same time, one must possess the competencies of a multi-specialty generalist. The world of risk information grows by leaps and bounds. All that information, even if it's not in your professional specialty, must be at your fingertips somewhere. And I mean fingertip by hitting the iPad at least. It has to be there. So some visioneering, if you will, is important for the profession. The arrival of the laboratory on a chip and microsensors will make exposure assessment nearly instantaneous and perhaps make it less dependent on technical sampling expertise. Biometric exposure assessment may replace air monitoring. Individual data can then be uploaded to a cloud, making instant comprehensive workplace profiles possible. Neuroprosthetics to augment cognition, nanobots to repair the ravages of disease, networks of sensors to provide 24/7 biomonitoring, so you can actually figure out what the exposure to the individual is. All of these things, digital, 3D manufacturing, artificial intelligence, risk-based genetic markers, and more that we can't even begin to define, are going to be enlargement challenges for the profession. Therefore, I think a new provision needs to be put into the contract between the profession and workers, their families, and the communities in which they live. It should provide, as I say, core competency enrichment and competency enlargement. And I think if these two conditions are satisfied, if we take on these new futuristically oriented capabilities, then I believe the profession can survive long into the 21st century. So in conclusion, the history of occupational health is being written right now. And each of us has a part to play in writing that history. At some point in the near term of the 21st century, wages will rise in China and elsewhere in the developing world. The third industrial revolution will arrive when manufacturing goes digital and 3D. And as the number of people directly employed in making things declines and the cost of labor as a proportion of the total cost of production decreases too, the cost of labor, then the manufacturers will be encouraged to move work back to this country. And I think that will all happen. Here in the US, where not just machines, but microorganisms that have been genetically engineered will be doing job tasks for us, and we will have to manage the exposure to these organisms. All of these risks, overseen by us, not imagined even by us today, are going to be serious issues for us. If for no other reason, then we're moving from a period of time in history where we just coexist with technology, to where we are co-evolving with technology. And I think professionally, if you remember nothing else, we have to co-evolve with our technology. We have to figure out how all of these technologies that are in our future can be used by us in the profession. We certainly may not be able to alter the forces of demography. We can't change these new employment relationships. We can't stop worker hypermigration, borderless economic transactions, the rise of state capitalism, irrational and dehumanizing discrimination, or manage worker disability systems of the 50 states and the federal government into perfection. But like those of us that came before us in our profession, we can work together to ensure that worker health and safety is both protected and promoted as we write the history of occupational health in the 21st century. I want to thank each and every one of you for what you do to safeguard the American worker. Thank you very much. I wish you all a healthy, safe, and secure workplace. Thank you very much.